you've stopped drinking for a month and, like you've been really good, reward yourself, have a big night, all of that sort of talk. And I mean, really, the brain wants to stay in the familiar, even if it's painful, even if, it knows that you should give up drinking. It's like, no, I like to be where I've been. So when you challenge it to change, it doesn't like it. So it starts to
Yeah.
walk you into staying where you are. That's why it will always choose, familiar pain over something new.
It's so true. And yeah, and you've got to deal with that from your own brain and from other people when you're first quitting. I had all these questions coming up, feeling, even worrying, will this affect work? What if I am catching up with someone for a meeting and they want to have a drink and I'm now not having the drink? Does that mean we're not going to build as much of a rapport? And, things like that, where I was just like, now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was thinking that way. But I was really worried about it. I was feeling this terror of, what if I tell them I won't want to drink? All this people pleasing stuff. Am I going to let this person down if they want to drink? And then on the flip side, when you first quit, you really notice, like, you'll go out with a few people and how big of a deal they make out of, oh, you're not drinking. What's wrong? Has something happened? What's going on? I'd met up with a friend in Australia that I hadn't seen for a while, and he couldn't get his head around it. What's happened though? Are you okay? Why would you do this? And it was my birthday a few days before, and he's like, just have one drink with me for your birthday. Come on, just one. And I said, no, I'm not drinking. I've quit. And he went and bought me a drink and put it down and said, no, just one, come on. And I said, no. And it just kept going. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I told you I don't want to drink. You're meant to be my friend. But some people just can't, like, get their head around it.
They can't. So, yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. And look, it generally says something more about where their relationship with alcohol's at. And, I think a lot of people are worried about that initially, like, how's it going to be received socially? How's it going to be received if I go out, to a business networking event and everyone else is drinking and I'm not? And, I guess it's really important to do some work on your mindset around that as well, and just to prepare and plan for what you will say. For me, it was always just about being simple and positive in my responses about why I was doing it, and that if people feel like you are trying to sound like, you're better than them or whatever, that's when it can cause, I think, issues. I think for me, I was always really happy to own my own issue. What was difficult is that I often, I had a lot of friends who probably had the same type of drinking, and they're kind of like, oh, well, if you think you've got a problem, maybe I do. But for me, it was really like, you know what? This is my decision. Drink away. Do whatever you want to do. I don't mind being around you if you drink alcohol. But what I did notice was that, again, there was a time where it was just like, I'm done now. Like, if I was around people who were excessively drinking a lot, I didn't want to be around them when they were really drunk. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You're on a completely different wavelength. So it was always about, I'd get to things early and I'd leave early, and I still do that. I'll still put boundaries in place around that to look after myself, because there's nothing worse than being the only sober person in a room.
Exactly. It's a very lonely sort of feeling, but, and I think it's important to have those boundaries. And like you said, I try and be careful around that of, I don't think I'm not judging anyone. I've probably done whatever you're doing. I think I've probably done 10 times more of that. These are the reasons, but I think it's important to distinguish that you don't have to feel like you're letting people down or doing anything wrong or acting like you're better than them or above them. It's just, like you said, it's nothing to do with any of that. It's like, well, if you're not on that wavelength, it's not really serving you to be there. They're probably not going to remember if you leave anyway. So I'm just going to have boundaries around that.
Exactly. And they don't. And I think people, they're more focused on themselves. And the longer you're not drinking for, it becomes the new normal. They don't expect you to, as you know, sort of pre-years to, it's not even a question now. People don't even ask me now. When I meet new people, it's always interesting if they offer you a drink and I go, I don't drink alcohol. And now people will ask, "Oh, why is that?" Or, "Do you mind if I ask why?" And I'm obviously always really happy to, to share my story. But more often than not, I find that people are fascinated around it. They ask you how you do it, how you cope. Do you find it difficult or challenging? And, I think having these conversations, it just opens up even for people, they think, "Oh, maybe I should look at my own drinking. Maybe I should start to drink less. Maybe I should start to have some more alcohol-free days." And I think this is the thing. It starts that conversation around, the role that alcohol plays in health. What we do know is over time, I was listening again to someone speaking on a podcast. If you choose not to drink alcohol, you're going to add years and years to your life as well. And for
Mm,
me, I want to continue to live well. I'm in my 50s now, and I feel better now in my 50s than I did in my 30s.
yeah.
And and I think that is due to me changing my relationship with alcohol completely.
Yeah, exactly. No, it makes so much sense because we don't think about the longer term repercussions of it when we're in the middle of it. It is weird, like what you were saying, that I've had so many friends talk to me where, like, you can tell a lot of people are curious about it and probably deep down would like to cut it out of their life or change their relationship with it. But a lot of the time, and I had this same experience where you're telling yourself, but no, I couldn't do it, because of all of these reasons. And I've had a lot of guy friends say that to me where they're saying, "Oh, that's amazing. You've done that. I wish I could, but I just couldn't. There's no way." And they've written it off before they've even explored it. And I remember doing a version of that to myself. So it's kind of funny that we just get so, we're so conditioned by whatever the status quo is. And we have that fear of change to the point where we just tell ourselves it's not even possible.
Exactly. I mean, I look at the version of myself that was drinking, and I never would have thought it was possible to embrace and enjoy an alcohol-free life. I would have always thought that I was missing out on something, um, and you don't know what you don't know, right? And this is the thing. It's really about being open to not knowing, because we don't know until we try something, and we'll often think it's going to be a certain way, but actually it until we do something, we're not really in the experience. And I think that's the thing about life. I was saying to you before when we were having a conversation, I chose to leave, my marriage 18 months ago. Now, even in all of that, sometimes you have all these ideas or preconceived ideas about what it's going to be like to leave and to be, to take your wedding rings off and all of that, and how, but when you do it, you go through the process, and you guide yourself through the process, and it's actually all incredible. It's difficult and hard, but it's through the difficult and challenging experiences in life that we learn so much about ourselves. And, I think our relationship with alcohol is one of those as well. And for me, now coming into my seventh year, it is, and I always say this, it's the gift. It keeps on giving. It's like, it really does. There is never a moment that I regret making the choice ever.
No. And yeah, I love that point you're saying where it gives you that, it's like a touch point where you realize I can make other changes. You made this huge life change, left the marriage, but you don't know what that is going to be like. There's the unknown, but what you do know is I have it in me to make these changes. And we're so afraid of, in situations that we know aren't good for us, of getting out of them. Like, often we would rather just stay in something that's not working for us than deal with the uncertainty of making that change. And it's sad because life is short and we need to be able to make those decisions and not stay stuck.
Definitely. I think that's so true. I mean, we have to sometimes just be true to ourselves. And I think this is the other thing about taking alcohol out. I believe that I just lead a more authentic, courageous life. And I think, I choose that life as well. knowing that sometimes you do make a decision or choice, you don't know what is on the other side of that, but you believe in yourself that you're making the right decision. If we knew exactly what was going to happen, if I look back at my life now and think if I knew exactly what was going to happen, I would have gone, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to go through all this stuff. It's so hard. I've been through breast cancer and also, and I would have said, no, I don't want this life. But here I am in my life. And for most of it, I love my life. I've got, the most important things. And this is the other thing, the connections and relationships that we have. And, in my life, they are so abundant. And that's where I put a lot of my, my time and effort. And, as you get older, those relationships and friendships become even more important, I think. And so when I was drinking, I still had lots of friends, but I don't believe I was nearly as good a friend, nor was I as trustworthy a friend, because I didn't trust myself. So how could anyone else trust me? Because, I'd often speak when I was drinking and say things that just were not, I'd open my mouth and tell people things that I really shouldn't have. And now I see myself as a very trustworthy person because I am at the core of who I am. When I was affected by alcohol, all of our emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. And so, of course, alcohol opens up this way of behaving, which, isn't great.
It would mean the world to me if you can subscribe to my channel, leave a like or comment, share it with your friends. It makes a world of difference. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps me to get this show bigger and better and bring on the guests and the production value that you ask for every single week. I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so much.